We have more breaking news out of the Ottawa Senators organization. GM Pierre Dorion has been let go. We'll discuss the details on how they're going to move forward coming up next. Welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some more breaking news here from the NHL and the Ottawa Senators. As I discussed in the earlier video, announcing the punishment for the Ottawa Senators having to forfeit a first-round pick for the major fumble and the Evgeny Dadonov trade to Vegas. GM Pierre Dorion has been relieved of his duties, so he's no longer with the organization. Now, this video is going to be recorded in two parts because I have a prior commitment that I have to get to. Of course, the press conference for the Senators announcing everything is coming at 3:15 Eastern time. I'm recording part of this just a little bit ahead of time. We have enough sources, including Elliotte Friedman, and of course, like I said, the Twitter source that I had this information last week on, confirming that indeed that is happening. This press conference that the Sens have announced will be indeed to announce the departure of Pierre Dorion. So, of course, not quite sure yet if we're going to get a new GM today or we're going to have Steve Staios take over on an interim basis while they complete that search. But stay tuned later in this video as I record the next part. Once that information is verified, then we will have that. So essentially, I'm going to be editing in a little interlude, probably from my car because I'll be on my way to an appointment just to keep the news as fresh as possible here on the channel. But of course, Pierre Dorion ultimately is paying the price for a major fumble here. The Sens will have to forfeit a first-round pick somewhere between the next 3 years. So they have the option of 2024, 2025, or 2026. They will have to make their decision within 24 hours of the draft lottery. So the draft lottery is usually held very early in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. So clearly by that point they'll know if they're a playoff team or not. They'll have an idea at least where they sit in the standings. If they're a lottery team, then they're going to want to definitely be very careful with how they proceed. If they're not a lottery team, then they know they're going to be in the bottom half of the draft somewheres. And while it might be a good time just to get rid of it in 2024 and be done with it, they do also have another first rounder coming from Detroit in the Alex DeBrincat trade. So they're not going to be completely without. Whereas in future years, it's difficult to say if that'll be the case or not. Hard to say, right? If things keep progressing and this team gets better, it becomes a consistent playoff team, whether it be this year, next year, moving forward, then they're probably not going to have that. So we'll see what happens. We don't know the answer to that question just yet. But just a quick review of Dorion's time in Ottawa. Definitely some good things have happened and some bad things have happened. I mean, Pierre Dorion, for the longest time, was kind of looked upon as being a puppet for Eugene Melnyk. He was one of the very few on the staff. Like, he reported directly to Melnyk. There was no president in between. Of course, he had to learn as a disciple of Brian Murray. Brian Murray was awesome. It was really, things changed drastically after Murray passed away. He was a good go-between between the team and Melnyk. Ultimately, things changed for Pierre. And I want to make something clear as well. I know a lot of people can pick on what Pierre might have done wrong. And obviously what he did with the Dadonov trade, as much as I think the punishment is harsh, especially when you factor in what happened in Chicago and the abuse cover-up, they were fined a couple of $1 million, but for these owners, that's chump change. Whereas they didn't lose any picks, and they got Connor Bedard right after. So yeah, from that perspective, it doesn't seem fair. However, should they be punished? 100%. And should he lose his job? I think it's punishable to that level. This is a major fumble here. But if you look at the record of Dorion over the years, he's been there a long time. He's probably outlived his shelf life, largely due to the transition period that we've been under with Ottawa after Melnyk's passing to the new ownership, where it's taken such a long stretch to get things looked after and sold. But just a quick look back of this whole situation. It was July 2021 when the Dadonov trade between Ottawa and Vegas took place. That's a total of 590 days from the start of that trade till the time punishment's announced. That's a long time. So there's been a lot going on legally behind the scenes. Vegas has been making a push for something to be done about this for a long, long time. It was March 21, 2022 when they tried to trade him to the Ducks, and that deal ended up getting voided. So in the offseason of 21-22, beforehand, they pick up Dadonov. By the deadline, they're trying to move him. Didn't work out. Got rejected. because they were given false information and lied to by Pierre Dorion. Now, there's enough sources that say that Dorion handled that trade call on his own, which many said is extremely weird. You usually have multiple staff members on every call, and that was not the case. You have to wonder if he knew he was doing wrong and didn't really want to have any witnesses, so to speak. The whole handling of the Trent and Troy Mann, having them let go of the organization was weird. Pierre McGuire was there for a while. There was a power struggle. A lot about this tenure was weird and can be looked upon as negative. But he did help the Senators go through a rebuild and acquire a lot of great pieces for the future. Unfortunately, he probably won't get much credit for whatever success they do have moving forward. But at the end of the day, he is responsible for the drafting and developing, along with his people, Brady Tkachuk, Timmy Stützle, Jake Sanderson, Drake Batherson, all these young players that are a huge part of this team's future. Looking back at the moves that were unfavorable or bad deals that'll kind of taint his reputation as whether or not he was a good GM. The Matt Murray trade from the Penguins and then signing him to like contract, that turned out to be horrible. Goaltending has been a major issue during the whole time of his reign as GM. The Alex DeBrincat deal, as much as it looked like a phenomenal trade, completely blew up in his face. I'll give him a pass on this one though, because it looked like the asking price, what they gave up to get DeBrincat, wasn't bad at all. But I would have pushed and wouldn't have made the deal without being able to speak to his representatives about an extension and get an idea and the feel of what his thoughts were going to be before making that deal, because it was pretty apparent from the get-go that he wasn't staying. And they cost them. Now, they got a first-rounder back, but whether or not they get an equal or quality player or not, we don't know. They're going to have to forfeit that pick because of this Dadonov thing. It just didn't work out for sure, and it's not looking good now. The trade last summer, or I guess 2 summers ago, for the goaltending trade, Gustafsson for Talbot, that blew up. That didn't work out good. Gustafsson takes off as a star goalie in Minnesota. Talbot has an injury-filled, inconsistent year in Ottawa and leaves. Of course, on the Mark Stone trade, when they previously dealt with Vegas, Vegas fleeced them on that deal as well. Eric Brandstrom's finally turned into a regular NHL defenseman, but not the star defenseman they thought they were getting by any means. So that didn't work out very well. And in the summer of 2021, they went on a signing spree of a bunch of veteran defensemen that were all bad. Eric Branson, Braden Colburn, Mike Riley. They soon wanted to move on from all of them. It was terrible. The Matt Duchene trade, you're looking back even further before the rebuild started. Matt Duchene coming in completely screwed up this whole team. I believe Matt Duchene seems to have some kind of weird negative aura that comes with him. It's weird. But, that's a lot of the things that Dorion has completed that have not been good. I'm sure there's others too. I don't want to make this too long, but one thing that he did do well, the Erik Karlsson trades worked out nicely. Because of that, they got the draft pick for Timmy Stützle. They got Josh Norris in that deal, their top 2 centermen. They got draft picks that helped them acquire goalie of the future, Levi Merilainen, and Zach Ostapchuk, who looks to be a promising prospect to be a regular NHLer in the near future. The Jacob Chychrun trade last year was phenomenal. Of course, he signed really favorable extensions for Brady Tkachuk, Timmy Stützle, Jake Sanderson, Drake Batherson. All these guys have long-term deals. They've committed to the team for favorable contracts. Bringing in veteran Claude Giroux, that was a favorable contract as well. The whole Shane Pinto situation, not getting that player looked after sooner. I mean, obviously other things probably would have happened. We'd still be in a predicament with a suspension, but it's a situation where that could have been handled way differently. So at the end of the day, Pierre Dorion is out as GM. I ask you to leave your thoughts on, was he a good GM or not? All GMs make mistakes. There's no doubt about it. But was there more good than bad, or is there more bad than good? Let me know your thoughts on that down in the comments as we wait for the press conference to start. Like I said, I'll be jumping back into this video with what is next. Are we having a new GM? Is Steos taking it over internally until they find that candidate? We'll know here shortly, so stay tuned. I'll be back to jump in with an interlude on this video. So the Ottawa Senators press conference has concluded. Michael Andlauer's confirmed that Pierre Dorion is out as GM, and he wanted to make it clear that it was a mutual parting of ways. So they sound like they'll actually let him resign, more so than just firing him. Ultimately, he talked a lot about accountability, talked about the fact that the Senators were negligent in this situation. And, obviously he seems like he's quite upset about how long things took as well. He said he doesn't understand why he's inheriting this mess. And I know some people have commented saying, well, you bought this team. But at the end of the day, this trade took place, over 18 months ago. This is not something that should have drug on so long. He said that he was aware of a potential situation involving this during the process of the sale, but he said the sellers made it pretty clear that they didn't think it was any kind of a big deal, and that it really probably nothing would come from it. So that was not what he wanted to hear. Obviously, he talked a lot about the fact that the whole Shane Pinto situation, he felt the team should have been made aware long before it was, because the investigation was going on in the summer, and they only found out about it not long before the punishment came down. They did know for a couple of weeks, but really, these are questions for the NHL. He said he even made a crack saying, maybe they didn't want me to know about these things to get the most money on a sale. Who knows, right? So it's difficult to say. But at the end of the day, Steve Staios is the interim GM. I'm trying to get the sun off my face here. There's rumors about Peter Chiarelli maybe being involved. Time will tell. Will Daniel Alfredsson's role be expanded? That's a possibility. But yeah, we'll have to stay tuned. There's going to be more to come from this. But Andlauer said that the Ducks in Vegas, he said the two teams were pissed and they wanted a pound of flesh, and they've been pushing for punishment. Essentially, there was a 73-page report given to him last week. They took the time to make the decision, talked to Steve Staios, and then they met with Pierre Dorion last night and came to the conclusion that they had to part ways. So at the end of the day, that's what we know, and we'll see in the coming days or weeks when they announce a new general manager. Andlauer seems like he's a big believer in the two-headed monster running the operation, so I don't suspect Staios will remain the sole guy in charge here as president for too long. But that's what we know. Let me know your reaction to Dorion's dismissal, whether or not you think he's a good GM. Was he a bad GM? Who do you think comes next? Let me know. We'll talk about it down in the comments. Of course, if you're new to the channel, subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with all the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.